Hello, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We'll be discussing a corporate social responsibility strategy that we have created for PEMKO Insurance. My name is Conrad Nilsson, and I'll walk us through an overview of this presentation. After that, Emma Rabin will discuss with us an analysis of the current CSR environment as it exists today and how the PEMKO brand meshes in with that analysis. After that, Josh Schott will introduce our recommendations on ways to make the already strong PEMKO brand even stronger in terms of CSR. After that, Jacqueline Zaleski will discuss with us an analysis of the impact of what we recommend and how that will affect PEMKO into the future. Then at the very end, I'll do a quick recap and then we'll leave some time for questions. To start our presentation, we turn to a quote that we found on the PEMKO website. PEMKO has proven that it's much different than other insurance companies. Rooted completely in the Pacific Northwest, PEMKO knows what it means and has demonstrated that it knows what it means to be an active and engaged member of its local community. So, we move on to our objective, to develop a distinctive corporate social responsibility strategy that continues to integrate the PEMKO brand and values. We approach this objective by looking at three primary perspectives. First, an internal perspective, what it looks like from the employee and management side of things, as well as an external perspective, what it looks like for policyholders and the CSR environment for other companies. And finally, we look at the values that have united the two since day one. So at this time, I'd like to invite Emma to tell us a little more about the CSR environment.
Thank you, Conrad. So what does it mean to integrate the PEMKO brand with a CSR strategy? PEMKO has been founded from the very beginning in three core values: courage, integrity, and responsibility. The other aspect that's very important to the PEMKO brand is being from the Pacific Northwest. PEMKO is a local company, and it shows that through all of its activities. PEMKO's current CSR strategy shows that it knows its customers on a deeper level. Through its Northwest profiles, it shows that it understands its customers on a level that other companies do not. It shows that it shares interests with its customers because its employees are a part of the same community as its customers. PEMKO integrates itself into the community in four distinct ways. They allow for 8 hours of paid service time for its employees to participate in volunteer services. Their employees serve on several different boards of volunteer organizations. They hold monthly need drives for different supplies and needs, such as school supplies, and they donate to different organizations in the Pacific Northwest, such as Washington DECA and the American Red Cross. Now let's look externally at the CSR environment in the corporate world. CSR can be defined as an integration of these three things: people, planet, and profits. If a corporation uses all three of these aspects and integrates them into their CSR plan, they'll create a CSR strategy that is effective and will be long-lasting. CSR is quickly becoming one of the most important aspects of the corporate world today. According to the Huffington Post, 6 out of 10 people are willing to pay more money to a company that they believe is reputable and shares their values. Even more impressively, 71% of millennials say that they want to work for a company that shares their values and is reputable. Because millennials are not only the next generation of PEMKO employees, but also the next generation of PEMKO policyholders, this is very important to keep in mind. The PR firm Edelman's published the 4 traits of an effective CSR. Credible. A CSR plan must be credible because it can't just be fluff. It needs to be real, tangible, and impactful on the community. It must be relevant. It must be relevant to the business activities of the company, and it must be relevant to the stakeholders of the company. Engaging. It must directly engage employees and customers in its plan. And authentic. A CSR plan should not just portray what the company thinks that they should represent, but also what the public thinks that the company should represent. Now let's look at our stakeholders. Our stakeholders are important to this aspect because the leadership is going to care about how the CSR plan integrates itself with the PEMKO brand and how it has been from the beginning. The employees care because they want to be proud to work for a company. The customers are going to be drawn to PEMKO because of its CSR plan and be proud to be a part of it once they are. And the Pacific Northwest community as a whole. They are the ones who are affected by this CSR plan. Now, customers are at the core of everything that PEMKO does, and so it's important to understand exactly who a PEMKO customer is. A PEMKO customer is independent, they're proud to be from the Pacific Northwest, they care about sustainability, and they support local business. Now, using all three of these, the values, the internal and the external perspectives, we've developed 3 goals for our CSR plan. Engagement. We want to directly engage our customers and our employees in our plan. We want to make a tangible impact. We want to make an impact that matters to all of our stakeholders. And communication. Communication is one of the most important aspects of a CSR plan. In the corporate world, CSR is a two-way pipeline. Not only are we going to tell our stakeholders how we're being socially responsible, but we want them to tell us how they want us to be socially responsible and continuously give us feedback. So how can we achieve these goals? We achieve these goals through an integration of the goals, the broader brand and values that PEMCO has held from the beginning, and the stakeholder interests. And with that, we have developed the new CSR plan for PEMCO Insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the PEMCO Promise. Josh, would you like to tell them more?
Thank you, Emma. PEMCO Promise is a commitment to the past, present, and future of the Pacific Northwest, one policy at a time. Our vision is to impact our community through these 3 sectors, the past, the present, and the future, where the past represents our heritage, the local businesses and the historic buildings that are such an integral part of this community, which our customers and employees are also a part of. The present represents the challenges that our community is currently facing and our opportunity to stand with them against those challenges. And the future represents the preservation of this beautiful Northwest environment for generations to come. Now, we intend to implement this PEMCO Promise through a one-for-one policy, where for every one new policy, we make one impact in our community. In order to go into the details about this PEMCO Promise, I want to tell a story. And our story begins with Christopher, a longtime customer of ours, who got his first PEMCO policy when he got his first house in one of PEMCO's 3 primary cities, Spokane, Washington. He's now getting a new boat and therefore needs another new policy. And his PEMCO representative informs him about this PEMCO Promise and about how this new policy will allow him to be engaged in the CSR plan. He'll be allowed to select the area of his environment, his community, that he wants PEMCO to impact in honor of his new policy. So should he choose the past, PEMCO will make a donation to, at this time, an organization called Downtown Spokane Partnership, which is committed to the preservation of businesses and buildings in Chris's hometown. Should he select the present, PEMCO will make a donation to local schools who are currently short on supplies. And should he select the future, PEMCO will plant 1 tree in honor of his one new policy. Now, because Chris is from Eastern Washington, he was severely affected by the wildfires that swept through the area just last summer. For this reason, he selects the plant a tree option in order to help rebuild part of his community that's been destroyed. Now, Chris then goes to his website and finds not only information on each of these 3 programs, but also goals that PEMCO has set for each one. He selects the plant a tree option, the future option, because that's what applies to him, and finds out that he can also see the specific impact that his trees, his policy, had on his environment over on the right. And on your left, you can see also a feed from other employees and customers who are listing their interactions with the PEMCO Promise. And he can also see stewardship reports listing out the financial analysis of this PEMCO Promise and the impact in the community. Now, we have these goals set out, but who's going to fulfill the goals? Who's going to plant the trees, for example? That's where our employees come in. Currently, PEMCO allows 8 hours per employee per year to volunteer their time, to sit on boards, and to generally engage with the company's CSR plan. Based on information found at Forbes, the national average for employee involvement in a CSR plan is about 45%, which means PEMCO's program is also probably extremely underutilized. That is why it's our big audacious goal to increase employee participation to 100% of employees, utilizing 100% of the available hours that we provide for them in the coming years. This will allow PEMCO to better align with the values it holds so closely to its brand and to show its community that it cares a lot like them, a little more. Now Jacqueline's going to go into the details about how we're going to make this PEMCO Promise a reality.
Thanks, Josh. So now that we've introduced our plan for how PEMCO can better its corporate social responsibility image, I would like to talk a little bit more about the impact that we believe this is going to have not only for PEMCO, but also for its stakeholders. And I want to start out first by revisiting the goals that Emma set for us earlier in the presentation. We believe the PEMCO Promise will further engage customers and employees in our corporate social responsibility brand because it will allow them to have a voice and a choice in where their money is going and where their impact is taking place. We believe the the one-for-one policy is going to provide customers as well as employees with the feeling of a tangible impact that they're having through engaging with PEMKO insurance. And finally, through the combination of these two, we believe PEMKO is going to be able to better communicate its involvement in corporate social responsibility within the Pacific Northwest. The most important people to keep in mind when assessing the impact of a corporate social responsibility plan are the stakeholders. We believe that the corporate social responsibility plan will allow PEMKO to have a better CSR image that aligns with its values. Because employees are more inclined to work for companies that are involved in corporate social responsibility, we believe employees will have higher job satisfaction and greater feeling of empowerment. Customers, like Emma stated before, are also more inclined to be engaged with companies that are engaged with corporate social responsibility. And for that reason, we believe our customers will feel a better sense of loyalty to PEMKO. And finally, through our increased protection and support through the programs we're offering through the PEMKO Promise, we believe the Pacific Northwest community will benefit as a whole. Now, we want this program to not just start, but we want it to last. And so we believe PEMKO will have to engage in a few key activities in order to make that happen. In the short term, we believe internal training, web development, along with promotion and campaign are going to be key actions that PEMKO will have to take to make sure that this campaign gets off and going from the start. Looking into the longer term, we believe program development as well as marketing and promotion are going to be activities that PEMKO will have to engage in year after year to sustain the program. Like Josh mentioned, our big audacious goal for the PEMKO Promise is to increase the current industry standard of 45% utilization of paid service hours to 100% in 20 years. And also, in addition to that, we would like to increase the current donation surplus of 5% to 6.4% in 10 years, which comes out to about $400,000 in today's terms. Right now, using financial estimations that we found on the internet, we thought that we estimate that PEMKO is currently donating about $250,000 worth of surplus. So by increasing this to $400,000 by 2026, this would be a net change of $150,000. In addition to the increase in surplus, we think there are going to be year after year fixed costs that PEMKO will have to incur in order to keep this program running. Taking into consideration salaries, advertising, website, and G&A, we believe PEMKO will incur about a $500,000 cost every year to keep this program sustainable. However, we believe using current financial data, with just a 0.5% increase in the number of premiums they would get from having this new corporate social responsibility image and brand, that their net increase could be about $1.2 million. So weighing the impact, what does this mean? We believe that although there will be costs of implementation, like with any new program, not only financial, but also costs of changing the culture of an organization and changing the mindset of your employees, the benefits that this plan will bring, including the increased social responsibility presence, the financial benefits, the stronger relationships it's going to form with its stakeholders, and the identity it's going to create for PEMKO within the Pacific Northwest and within the world of corporate social responsibility, the benefits will outweigh the costs. Now, like with any new plan, the last thing I would like to speak to are the risks. Now, it's possible that with the new costs, there could be downturns in business. However, we believe, like PEMKO believes, there's no wrong way to do the right thing. And we believe that although there might be costs up front, in the long run, it's going to be better for PEMKO to stick with this plan and incur some of those costs. The second risk is that there may be no desire to participate by employees or by customers. And we believe that in this, to mitigate this risk, there should be an opt-out option. As a customer, you shouldn't have to participate if it's not something you want to. If you're an employee, you shouldn't have to give those hours if it's not something you're comfortable with, but someone else can cover that for you. Thirdly, low reception. With any new program, it's possible that a new brand cannot take off. However, we believe if PEMKO leadership dedicates themselves to high promotion, starting from the top and filtering out, coupled with the positive corporate social responsibility trends we're seeing in society, this risk is improbable. And finally, a one-for-one can seem like a low perceived impact, but we believe because customers and PEMKO employees and leadership are going to be able to actually feel the impact that they're giving, that this risk is also going to be very slight. And finally, I'd like to bring Conrad back to recap for what we've talked about for the presentation.
Thank you, Jacqueline. As we stated at the beginning of this presentation, we wanted to focus on three primary perspectives of PEMKO: that which is internal, including employees and leadership; that which exists outside of the companies, such as policyholders and the CSR environment; and finally, the values that have coupled the two since its first day of operation. From this, we created the PEMKO Promise to protect the past, present, and future of the Great Pacific Northwest. We do this through a one-for-one policy, where each new policy has an impact on the policyholder's local community. And why should PEMCO pursue this type of CSR strategy? Because we believe it can be the new face of CSR in the Great Pacific Northwest. Why? Because we care a lot like you, a little more. Thank you, and at this time, we'd like to open things up for some questions.
I'd like to just sort of recap what your thinking was. Sort of your estimate was that employee participation would be 45% or less, and we did hear earlier that it's maybe more like 25 or 30%. So what, other than setting a goal, what did you think PEMCO could do to actually encourage more people to participate? I heard the idea that, well, others could cover your shift basically for you, but if you're talking about numbers like 30 or 35%, that's a lot of hours to be covered.
Thanks for asking that question. So the reason we set our big audacious goal at 100% participation by 100% of the employees is because we want that to be something that challenges the company. That's why you set a goal, and that's why we put the time span at about 20 years, because we believe that that averages out a 5% growth over that time span. And when you put it in those terms, I think it becomes something really tangible and really possible for the company. I think things that are going to be extremely important for the company to reach that goal are going to be stem from a cultural change that will definitely require participation from all aspects within the company. Not only will that require really strong stemming from the leadership, I think, within the organization to filter out, and a commitment by all of the employees.
Actually, one quick thing on that too. Absolutely, and we're not expecting this change to happen overnight either. We're expecting about a 5% growth rate year over year, so we think that coupled with the amount of time we've allotted will definitely allow the company to challenge itself. It will have to challenge itself to reach this goal, but we definitely think it's doable within the time span provided.
Thanks for the presentation. That was great. Quick question. You guys talked about looking at external CSR trends to see what else is going on. PEMCO differentiates itself by saying we're a little bit different. So did you get the time to look at what other insurance companies are offering in the way of CSR programs to see if your proposed recommendations are different than the norm, or do you have a sense of how they line up?
I can take this one. Yeah, we did. And one of the biggest ones in the Pacific Northwest specifically would be Safeco Insurance. And the way that they do that through their Liberty model is Liberty Serve and Liberty Gives. And so they give money, and then they also have several events throughout the year where they do large events for basically their whole staff that can make it. When we were looking at that compared to what we wanted to do with PEMCO, was we wanted to make it a year-round, day-to-day, every aspect of PEMCO's business activities has some element of CSR. And so that's kind of why we included this in every policy, every new policy, rather than just having it be, oh, one day a year, we checked that mark, we can move on and go back to our normal activities.
Just to touch on that before we move to the next question, we also wanted to make sure that our corporate social responsibility aligns more with the values of the customers within the Pacific Northwest, because our company is specific to the Pacific Northwest. And so that's why we felt the three key areas that we identified really aligned well with the values of local business, sustainability, being proud of where you are. And so that is kind of what guided our decision.
Hello, question. So your presentation started out kind of speaking in the terms of millennials. However, when I look at your projections, they're more long-term, the 10-year and the 20-year, and they kind of don't marry each other in the sense of millennials. I don't think there's a mindset of being somewhere that long. So are there numbers that you have in this projection that are a bit more short-term that could be more relatable to that audience that you're trying to attract?
Absolutely. Let's go back here to the slide where we talked about our goals. Right here. Okay, so we actually have 5-year projections for both of these as well. Assuming a 5% growth rate year over year for employee involvement, in about 5 years, that looks at about 60% involvement of the company. And so this is where, specifically for millennials, like you were saying, this would be the target that we try to attract for that group. So by the year, 5 years from now, we expect to have about 60% of employees involved in these types of strategies. And we do that through internal marketing and other things of that nature. As far as the donation of surplus, as we stated here, by a little bit of deductive work we were able to do with some 2013 financial statements we were able to come by, we assumed that that would be about $250,000. And so if we were to increase in about 5 years, assuming 0.5%, as we mentioned on this slide, that premiums that would increase, we're expecting about a 2.85% compounded growth rate in terms of premiums collected. And so that would lead to about a $9.5 million increase in premiums in about 5 years.
How did you do your research? On the slide that's PEMCO Promise, and you have the historical building, and then the school and the trees. So the one before that. Oh, where is it? That one.
This one?
So how did you do your research? Because I actually think this is very astute to the local region. So I can't ask where you're from, don't want to. I want to know how you arrived at this.
So PEMCO was founded by an educator with the intention of education. Many of the other organizations that the individual, the founder, was involved with were around education. So that was where our present came from, the local schools that are short on supplies, because education is at the roots of PEMCO Insurance entirely. And so we found, based on his history, that education and schooling should be included. The future, obviously, with the almost obsession over the environment in this area, it's especially with the recent wildfires, things like that, natural disasters, that it's important to include that environmental aspect. And of course, in each of these three cities, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle, Portland, and Spokane, local business is booming, entrepreneurship is booming. And it's for that reason that so many people, our customers and employees, are interested in that aspect of entrepreneurship and will want some way for PEMCO to impact that part of their community.
And that also brings in the pride aspect of who a PEMCO customer is. With the past, they do care about their heritage and being from the Pacific Northwest. As all of you, I assume, are from the Pacific Northwest, you can understand how it's deeply rooted in who you are, and you understand that other people from the Pacific Northwest feel the same way. And so supporting the heritage of these types of cities through local business and through the Downtown Spokane Foundation that he mentioned, that's the type of organizations that we want to support with that.
Going once? No other questions? You guys did a good job of answering the questions in your presentation. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. The first place team for this year's the 2016 5th Annual Milgard Invitational Case Competition on Social Responsibility, Gonzaga University.